world, let's chat it up. We're talking competitions, uniforms, and all of the above. It's the Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Moms, your podcast is on.
Am I the only one who's still wondering where Chanel Jones is on the Today Show? I used to watch Today Show every single morning without fail. It was part of my morning routine. I'm sorry to break it to you, but I had the biggest crush on Matt Lauer. I was devastated when the news about him broke. I was devastated. Like, I didn't get anything done the whole day. I was so upset. I love Savannah. I love Hoda. I don't watch morning TV as much anymore, but when I do, and if it's between the hours of 7 and 9, it's always the Today Show. I am a Today Show girl. Al Roker is, I don't know, he's not my spirit animal, but he's somebody that I strive to be like in a lot of ways. And I didn't think this would impact me, but every time I turn the Today Show on for 3 months now, Chanel has been missing. And she came out and said, "Thank you for your concern. I'm dealing with a family health matter." And that's all she said. And I'm just really thrown off. I really hope she's okay. She's been gone for 3 months. So this has to be serious. And Carson Daly is on the Today Show, and he does like a pop culture segment every morning. But then when he goes and records for The Voice, he's gone, and that throws me off. And so like when Carson comes back, I'm like, yay, it's Carson. I think I might have a crush on him. I think it's like a growing crush. I knew who he was. TRL was in my peripheral. For those of you who know what TRL is, we all need to be stretching for 30 minutes every day or we're going to get arthritis. For those of you who know TRL and Carson Daly, we all need to be taking multivitamins. For those of you who know TRL and Carson Daly, it's time for a wrinkle cream. But anyway, TRL was like in my orbit growing up, and everyone knew who Carson Daly was, and he was so cool. And I think that there are bands, like famous bands, I think Smash Mouth, if I'm not mistaken, credits Carson Daly for giving them their big break. He is very, not just well known, but loved in the music industry. And now he's a dad, and he's so cool. Even now, like, he's cool in a different way. He's cool to the middle-aged suburban moms like me. And so when he's gone, I'm like, oh, Carson, oh man. Does anyone else have that kind of like attachment to their news shows or morning television? Tell me. Tell me I'm not the only one. Tell me I'm not weird. Okay. I really want you guys to hold space for the subject matter that is in today's episode. Maybe you are not affected by it. Maybe you don't know anybody who is affected by it. But I think that there is a lot to be learned here for everyone. And although I pray that this doesn't happen, you may be in a different position 5 years from now. You may be in a position to where you're having to face this in one way or another and offer help to someone. I was at NCA this past month, and before the incident, as we are all calling it now, we call it the incident in quotations. Before that, I was in Battle in the Arena. I don't know what they're going to call it when it moves to Houston. I don't know what they're going to do. But is there even an arena in Houston? I don't know. Anyway, that presentation, the Friday night battle, maybe that's what they'll call it. Anyway, the Friday night battle, world's teams will do exhibitions. It's a fun kickoff to NCA weekend. But as part of that program, there are awards and recognitions, like scholarships that are awarded. And there's this award called the Heart of the Tiger Award. It is awarded to someone who has shown resilience, who is an inspiration in the industry. I've seen it awarded a couple of times. The stories are just incredible and inspiring. And so if you're at NCA in the future and you're not competing, consider attending this Friday night exhibition before the teams actually kick off, because you really learn about some amazing folks who are doing good work in the industry. But this year's Heart of the Tiger, I keep wanting to say Eye of the Tiger. Okay, focus, Kristen. This year's Heart of the Tiger award was awarded to a young lady who has really overcome a big battle, a battle that we don't talk enough about, especially in cheerleading, but I think in society, I think outside of cheerleading, it is a very difficult and personal thing to talk about. And we need to be having these conversations and talking about it more. But this young lady, her name is Lily Jones, fought, and I'm happy to say, won her battle with an eating disorder. And she is sharing her story. And as soon as I learned about Lily's story, I rushed over to her mom, Heather, and said, we've got to talk about this. Would you be willing to be on the Cheer Mom podcast? So they joined me today. Heather and Lily Jones and I had, I'm calling it hands down, the most powerful and meaningful conversation I have had in whatever it is, almost 150 episodes of this podcast. I got emotional. They got emotional. They were honest, raw, vulnerable in sharing Lily, not only her story, but Heather, her experience of being a mom of someone struggling. I am so grateful that they joined me. If you recognize their names, Heather and her husband, Casey, are the owners of Stingray Allstars. So that adds, and from my perspective, that adds another layer of, oh, wow, like this is a high profile family. A lot of people know who they are. A lot of people know who their kids are. And I asked them, how did that impact their journey and the battle and how they spoke about it, how they talked about it? And they held nothing back with me. It was just so moving. And I'm honored to have had the opportunity to sit down and talk with them. I will give a content warning here. This episode and the conversation talks about eating disorders and self-harm. And so please listen with care. If you or someone you know is struggling with an eating disorder, or you have suspicions that someone you know is struggling, or you just want more information, you can call the National Alliance for Eating Disorders. They have a free helpline. You can contact them at 866-662-1235. And I will link that and additional resources in the show notes of this episode. Have you ever met someone with a tattoo and asked them why they chose that specific tattoo? They probably had a story about how it's significant to them. I have 3 tattoos, and they all have a very deep and meaningful significance to me. And every time someone comments on one, I'm like, thanks. And then I give them like a 5-minute explanation about why it's important to me. Even if tattoos aren't your thing, I think that we all need little encouragements and things that are specific to us, that remind us of the things we love most and the words that motivate us to keep going. And that's why I started TCC Jewelry. The necklaces, bracelets, and rings are simple and engraved with little words that have special meaning, like hit 0, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, 1, 3, 5, 7, and more. And check out the new collections like the Faith Collection, and introducing the Dance Collection, baseball, softball, and volleyball collections. Get something special for yourself or that special athlete or coach in your life today by visiting tccjewelry.com and enter coupon code CheerMomPod for 15% off your order. That's tccjewelry.com and enter coupon code CheerMomPod for 15% off. This episode of the Cheer Mom podcast is brought to you by all of our new favorite sock company, Apollo. You may have seen them at a recent cheer event, and they are changing the game for cheer athletes, coaches, and even cheer moms. Listen to more of the episode to learn more and find out how you can get 10% off of your order. First of all, I'm really honored that you both have joined me to talk about this. I think that we need to be talking about the hard things in cheer more and not just all the perfect things and the fun things and the highlights. Those are all great, but there are athletes that struggle with so many things. And one of the things that kind of surprised me is mental blocks. Athletes, I feel like there hasn't been an athlete that I've met that hasn't struggled with a mental block, yet the ones struggling think they're the only ones. So I'm grateful that you're here to talk about another aspect of the difficult stuff. And I am just thrilled that we get to sit down and chat today. So thank you both.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So let's start with you, Heather. You guys are, to say the least, you're a cheer family. And you guys, I first met you at NCA this past year at the Battle in the Arena, and they did a video piece on you. And you had been featured on like a varsity video years and years ago. How did that come up, and how did you guys get started in cheer?
So we got started in cheer. My husband and I were cheerleading partners in college. And from there, that's where it grew. And he wanted a job where he could sleep in and get up and go to work and come home. And that was perfect for him because he enjoys riding his bike and all of that stuff. So that gave him the opportunity. But we also love kids. And then when we started having children, our oldest, she was in her pack and play in the office when I was working. And it just grew. We both love it, and we love being around kids. And Emily started when, I don't know, Emily, my oldest, I don't know her exact age when she started, but she started as early as she could. And then Lily was the same. She wanted to start as soon as she could. I can't remember how old you were, but it was peppermint, correct? Yeah. So she started on one of our younger teams, and I tried to convince her not to. I was like, you're too little, you'll be burnt out. But she and her dad, and of course her big sister, were really eager to get her involved. So she is number 4 of our 5 kids. So we have 3 boys, and then Emily is our oldest. But that's why they wanted to do a day in the life of a Stingray mom. And so was that your first year that they did that? So Lily's first year, and that was Emily's senior year. It was a little crazy, the chaos, and Lily was a little clingy when she was younger. So having Emily and not missing any of those senior moments for her, but also being the wife of the Stingray Allstars owner, all of those kids grew up in our program. So we tried to watch as many kids as we can. So they wanted to see what it was like in the chaos and the crazy, but how it flowed. So they did that video, and then she won that Heart of the Tiger award recently. And then this is also her senior year. So for Lily, so that came back to fruition because that last competition in the arena, and they were just looking for memories and things of that sort. So it came to fruition that way. And it just so happened that Lily had overcome some obstacles and won that award. Very deserving, I feel like. Yeah.
Lily, did you ever get tired of cheer where you wanted a break, or have you loved it all the way through?
I feel like for the most part, I've loved it. I guess all cheerleaders have those practices where they come home and they're like, nope, not doing it. But then tryouts come around and I end up doing it.
It's the story. And I'm laughing because, there's so many cheerleaders that, especially in the spring, like April is a really hard month in cheer. And
yes,
especially I feel like the 10 to 13, 14 range, like right before they go into high school, they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore in April. And then tryouts come around and wait, I thought you weren't doing it anymore. I planned a whole summer vacation. That's real. So I want to switch gears, and it's a hard place to go to. It's a hard transition to make, but Lily, you have been so brave to share your story, and curious because you're a beautiful girl. What was it that you didn't like about yourself that kind of took you to a dark place?
I would say majority of my insecurities around my body came from me comparing myself to others, whether it was like my friends at school or people like cheerleaders on social media or cheerleaders like around the gym. And social media, I feel like I got social media at a young age. And I think that social media is a very toxic place when it comes to cheerleading. And lots of people think that every cheerleader has to look a certain way and stuff like that. So I had an image in my head of what I wanted to look like, and I couldn't get there safely. Yeah.
So, can you describe what that image was for you of what a cheerleader is supposed to look like?
I really just wanted to be what I would think of skinny. I just wanted to be smaller than I was. And I wasn't even big, but I just didn't look the way I wanted to.
Yeah, I get that. And so, what happened then?
It was really the start of COVID when everything started, when everything was shut down. So it's like I didn't have as much of cheer. So I was sitting in my room all the time, isolating myself, didn't have very many friends, and always on my phone, always on social media, comparing myself to others. And then there's those anonymous accounts that are like body shaming other athletes. And then it's they think that they're not small. And what am I? And then I really just got in my head about how I looked and I wanted to change something, but I didn't really know how. So my immediate thing was to start restricting my food intake. And then from there, it just got worse.
And so, at what point, so how long did that go on for?
Couple months.
When we realized that, when it was brought to our attention, she had a couple of friends that came to me, and they were her best friends at the time. And it was Miss Heather, we're really worried. We don't want to break her confidence, however, or her trust. But Lily is not eating. And she really didn't try to hide it. They were doing school online. The gym had closed down, so they were doing virtual practices and virtual classes, and everything was done pretty much in our home. And having 5 kids, they would all be in their separate rooms doing their schoolwork, and they would get a little break. And so I would carry her food upstairs like I did the other kids. She just wouldn't eat it. She would just leave it on her dresser. But her friends noticed, her good friends noticed, and they were worried. I think she confided in them to a degree, and I think that may have been a cry for help unknowingly, potentially. I'm really not sure, but that's when I started making myself more aware and watching more, and then noticing how gradually, that was in November, really, when I noticed and it was brought to my attention. I think that some of the feelings had started before that, and she had just not acted on them. Would you say that's right? That
Yeah, I struggled with body image for a while before any of my eating disorder behaviors came up. But I would probably say around beginning of November, and I feel like everything escalated quickly. Like it got bad fast. At the time, I didn't notice that it was really a big deal until other people were noticing.
So, when you say it got bad fast, did you lose weight really fast? Did you start feeling sick?
At first, I started just restricting a little bit, and then it just got worse to the point where I was going like days without eating. And I don't remember at what point we did end up going back to cheer. And then I would notice at like practices, my tumbling wasn't as good. It was harder for me to have energy for that because I didn't have the amount of nutrition that I needed. And then I think my coaches said something to my parents about it because like my stunts were not hitting anymore. Like I just didn't have the strength to do it anymore. And it was like within a month that it went from I could do all this stuff to I wasn't really eating anything and I had no energy to do the sport that I loved.
Interesting. That's a really powerful sentence right there. Heather, you said that people started coming to you about it and you started watching. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. And I think I would start watching too, but I think initially I would be like, nah, she's good. What were your kind of thoughts and feelings when people started coming to you saying something's going on?
It happened so fast. Lily doesn't have many friends, but the friends that she had at the time, they were good friends. When COVID hit, we lived in a bubble, probably like majority people. But so some of the kids were allowed to come to our house and be around the other, like we would commingle, but not outside of our bubble. And when these girls came to me and one of them was just like, she's not eating, she's taking laxatives, then I'm like, no way. So I went over the top and I was watching Lily's every move. And so I noticed. So as soon as they brought it to my attention, I told my husband, and he's the proactive one. He is the one that's just, nope, we're not going to do this. You're going to eat or I'm going to take you to the hospital. And I remember that day in December very vividly. We were on our way to practice and she had not eaten and she would always eat Chick-fil-A. I could always get the kid to eat some chicken nuggets and fries. And I picked it up and I was like, you have until we get to green practice to eat. And if you don't, you will not get out of this car and I'm taking you home and you're done. And it was one of those deals where, and we're always like, you can't quit if you start something. You have others relying on you. You can't just give up on everybody. And she threw that in my face a little bit. I can't do that. You can't make me quit. My team they need me. I got to be there for them. Not this time. So she refused to eat. And I called her coach and I said, I'm sorry, she's done. And we made a U-turn and went home. And she cried the whole way, but she still would not eat. And my husband was the one that was proactive and he laid down the law and he was like, you have X amount of time to drink this amount of water or eat this amount of food or we're going to CHOA. And I was like, no, I'm her mom. I can fix it. No, I realized really fast, but it took him taking the bull by the horns and he called my oldest daughter and was like, pack her a bag. I'm taking her to CHOA tomorrow if she hasn't eaten. And I didn't know that she was going to the hospital until they walked by with her bag in her hand. And I was just like, you can't do this. Wait, I can fix her. We can do it. But I had a very good support system and my friends showed up and they were like, you've got to let this happen. And I think acting so quickly and my husband's reaction and him taking control, because I felt like I did, but I really didn't. And it was scary because the last thing you want to do, you always want to protect your children. And moms can fix everything. And mom couldn't fix this one, not alone. And December 5th, she went to the hospital and that's when her treatment started. And it was a long, hard road, but she refused to eat. She was stubborn as a mule. And she was just like, nope, not going to do it. Need a feeding tube? Cool. Like she was that adamant that she wanted to look a certain way and be a certain way, that she was going to do whatever she had to, no matter what was threatened, what was taken away. It didn't matter what the doctors were going to do. So it was very scary for me and very emotional. And at the time, I don't remember how old Gage was, but he was little. So we were trying to shelter our youngest son. And my older boys, they are very protective. And so it shook everybody because we didn't know what to do. And it was the beginning of a long journey that everybody kept saying, you'll get to the other side. You'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm grateful that we did, because I've been told that it's not very common that people in general can beat it. So I'm grateful that she was strong enough to overcome the eating disorder and be on the other side and us getting to see the light of
Wow. Yeah.
everything.
There's so much there. Lily, how old were you? 12, 13?
The November that it started, I believe is when I turned 13.
Okay. Wow. That's such a hard
Yes. Yeah.
age. That's such a hard age. Okay. So, Lily, you sound like you're a fighter on so many levels. And at first you fought against this. What was going through your mind, and what made you realize that this wasn't good for you, and what made you decide to accept the help and the treatment?
Honestly, it took me a while to accept the fact that something was wrong with me. There were parts in my mind where I was like, once I got into treatment, I was in a residential facility. So I was living there, and it was during COVID. So my parents couldn't come visit me. And I was around holidays, like I missed Christmas and New Year's and stuff like that. So the first treatment facility that I was in, once I started eating and I realized that this is what I have to do to get out of here, I feel like I played the system at the first place. I ate the food. I knew that I had to eat to get out. And I would see all these other people around me engaging in behaviors and being sneaky. And I was taking in what they were doing, but then still eating. So once I was discharged and could come home, I tried to get away with it more. And then I think it was at the second facility I went to, which was in Clearwater, Florida, another residential facility, which obviously
far away from home.
Yeah. At that point, I couldn't see my family because I was 8 hours away. I just had to accept that I couldn't live like this. Like, eating disorders, the goal of the eating disorder, like, you're not going to achieve what your eating disorder wants until you're dead.
Right.
Because the finish line always moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So once I realized that if I keep going this way, I'm gonna die, like, I had to accept help. I couldn't see my family over holidays. I couldn't see them in general. And I was really close with my mom. I couldn't see my mom. I couldn't cheer. Cheer was a really big thing. Like, when you do cheer, you don't think that you're going to miss it that much. But when it's taken away from you, you realize how much it does in your life and how much you love it. And I wanted those things back in my life. So I had to accept that something was wrong with me, and I had to accept the help. And you really can't get better until you say, I want to get better. And it took a long time for me to get there, but once I did, I made it happen.
There were times she would be sitting there and I would work with a nutritionist and they would send a chart and they would be like, you have to make X, Y, and Z. This amount of, it would be like a whole bagel, a cup of fruit, straw, like it was literally every single thing. And I had to make it and set it in front of her. She would have to take a picture and send it. If I was like, she's not going to eat this all, because it was a lot of food, because we were at that point refeeding her body. And once you've depleted your body of nutrition, it takes a year, 1 year to refeed your brain. And so the amount of food intake was substantial. And she was like, I'm not eating all that. So she would take a picture and just push the plate away. She's like, yep, I'm done. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And it was just going through the motions. And she would tell me, Mom, I'm not ready to get better yet. And there was one time I looked at her. I used a few choice words that I won't repeat on her podcast.
We can all imagine. We've all been there with our kids in one way or another.
We nicknamed her eating disorder Ed. And I would literally look at her and I would be like, I need you to tell Ed to take a step back and let me speak to my child. It was literally like dealing with two different people. And she would get angry at me and she would giggle. I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, I want to talk to Lily. I need Lily to hear me right now. And so it was a constant struggle. But until Lily said, I want to get better, which took well over a year.
Wow.
it wasn't going to happen. Just like any other addiction, until that person is able to realize, okay, I'm ready and I need help. It's a battle. It's hard for everybody involved, friends, family. It's hard. And she is, like I said, she is one stubborn child. But when she was ready for help, we were ready to dive in as a family and rally around her.
How long were you in treatment in Florida?
I was at that facility for 3 months.
Oh, wow. And it was still hard to come home and eat at home.
Yeah. When I first came home from that second facility, I was doing IOP, which is intensive outpatient. So it was a couple days a week. I would have to go onto a Zoom with other people struggling with the same thing. And there would be like a therapist and a nutritionist in there. And we would have little groups, and then we'd have to eat dinner on there. And I got back into how, like, the old habits. I stopped eating again, and I was seeing how the other people weren't eating and they were getting away with it. And eating disorders are competitive. It sounds weird, but you'll see somebody else and your eating disorder will want to be worse than them. So I would see somebody else not eating and I would want to also not eat. And then I made a decision with my family and with my therapist that I was going to stop doing IOP. And I think that was probably the best decision we could have made, because once I stopped that, I could really focus on myself. And from there, things got better.
Yeah.
This episode of the Cheer Mom podcast is brought to you by Apollo Performance Socks. As a longtime seasoned cheer mom, I have seen firsthand how demanding this sport can be on young athletes' bodies, especially their feet and ankles. Enter Apollo Performance Socks. These socks are seriously a game changer. The targeted support and compression have made a world of difference, not just for athletes, but for me, I'm not an athlete. It literally feels like a hug for your feet. I had a cheer mom tell me it feels like these socks were licked onto my feet by kittens. Apollo Performance Socks help athletes to practice longer, recover faster, and focus on performance instead of pain. If your cheer athlete is dealing with foot or ankle issues, I highly recommend giving Apollo socks a try. Visit apolloperformance.com and use code CHEERMOM2024 for 10% off of your order. That's Apollo, APOLLA, performance.com, and enter code CHEERMOM2024. So, Heather, you mentioned you compared it to an addiction. Is that how, and I'm not very educated on eating disorders, is that kind of how the therapists and the experts treat it in terms of psychologically and in therapy, like it's an addiction?
Not necessarily the eating disorder, the behaviors that she learned that I really struggled with. And do you care if I share, or would you rather?
No, I don't care.
She learned self-harm in the first treatment facility. And that was very hard. When she first came home, her therapist was like, look at her arms or her legs. She's been scratching and there's a lot, and just she's looking for attention. Don't give it to her. So Casey and I were like,
Oh, that's
how bad can this be? But literally from the tips of her fingers to her shoulders, her thighs. And I struggled with that. And I would be like, why? Why do you keep doing this? As we got further into it. And then she would go huge lengths of time. And when I say huge, it would be weeks. Because when you're dealing with an eating disorder, even the smallest things are wins. So if we go a week with no self-harm, or if we go, like, every meal is, you celebrate it, because that's hard for them. And we don't realize how hard it is for that person until we've been through it with them. And so she went 7-8 weeks, no self-harm. And then out of the blue, I think I was washing clothes or something, and I saw blood in her sports bra. So she would do it in places where I couldn't see it. And so I confronted her. She's always been very honest with me. And she would say, so I called her doctor. I was like, what are we doing wrong? Why? And when my light bulb went off is when she said, self-harm is like a drug addiction. She is struggling with something and she just wants that pain or those thoughts to go away. So when she scratches herself for that short period of time, it's the same as if she were to do drugs. It gave her that instant feeling so she could forget what she was thinking about or feeling or whatever. And I was like, it really did make sense, because that's when she would do it, is when she was battling her thoughts or something was going on. She wanted to forget about it. And so when it had gotten better and it was few and far between, even the one mess up, I would be like, okay, what did I do wrong? Like, why are we going back down this road again? And it would scare me because I was always worried. Are we reverting back to the eating disorder? Are we going backwards? But when the doctor told me that it was like an addiction, it made sense. And then I was able to take a different approach of it instead of getting angry with her and, okay, how do we deal with this addiction? And her therapist was fantastic. But Lily would also reach out, and she was very open and honest. And that's super important, because these kids, they'll look you in the face and they'll say, oh, no, I'm good. Oh yeah, I ate. And they're not. And you want to believe them. So we had a big trust broken, because I am a very trusting person. And I told Lily, I was like, you can earn my trust back, but you got to work for it. And you have to prove to me. And I feel like we're there. I don't feel like she holds anything back, and she can come to me about anything, and we're going to talk about it and work through it. And I think that's been a huge process in her recovery as well, is being able to tackle this all together.
Being able to be honest about it, I imagine, and yeah, face it. Lily, you mentioned that your motivator was, if I don't stop this, I'm gonna die. And maybe there's not a simple answer to this question, so you tell me if it's a bunch of things. But was there something that made you realize that? Did you feel physically bad? Did you want to be around for your family? Was it cheer? Was there something that contributed to, oh, I'm gonna die?
I would say, like, when I was in treatment, I was around other patients with eating disorders, and I would see their health just declining really fast. Like, there was this one girl there, I remember, and I think it was really her that it opened my eyes a lot. Like, she was a mom, so she was in a different unit, but like I would still pass her in the halls and stuff. So she had a family at home, and her health was just like declining really fast. She did not look good. I hope that she's doing good now, of course, but I knew that, like, I wanted to be there for my family. I one day want to get married and have my own kids and stuff like that. And also, not only the eating disorder pushes you closer to death, but also, like, it can mess up your health, and there's some things that you just can't fix. So a lot of people go so far in their eating disorder where they don't have their period anymore, and then they can't have kids anymore. And I did not want to get to that point, because I want to have kids and I want to have my own family, and I wanted everything that I lost. I wanted that back. Yeah.
I love that. I love that you start thinking long term, and how is this going to impact your life long term and not just what's happening right now. That's huge.
Yeah.
Okay, so Heather, you guys, it's no secret, you guys are a high profile family at a high profile gym in the cheerleading world. This is a very personal battle of not just Lily's, but I imagine your whole family was dealing with this, and how to battle this and how to support her. How did you handle that as a cheer family in the position that you're in?
First, we didn't, her coaches knew and her peers knew. We felt like it was her story to tell, so we really didn't talk about it a lot. A support system is huge. I had a group of my friends that were amazing and were still great friends, best friends that I could lean on and talk to. But we were sitting in church one day and Lily was still in the hospital. And it literally seemed like Casey and I, and this was right after churches had opened back up and you could go in person. And we found a new church home, and our close friends had been praying for us, and even people we didn't know, they would put Lily on their prayer list, and I would get texts all the time. And that meant a lot because walking through it alone as a mom and dad is hard. And Casey did. He didn't want to talk about it. He wanted to protect his daughter, and he couldn't. And the fear for him was overwhelming. And so I would do a lot of the Zoom calls because everything was via Zoom. I would do, unless it was a family something, I would do it and then I would talk to him. And it turned into one of those deals where we were in our own bubble and I would just tell him, look, because moms can fix everything, right? So I was like, I don't want your opinion. I want you to listen to me. And I want you to, and there would be days that Lily wouldn't call me. And I'd be like, is she okay? What's going on? And I would just go to him and he would look at me and I would just start bawling. And he wouldn't say a word. He would hold me. We would pray about it. And in church that one day, it was like we were the only ones in the room. And the pastor was speaking just to us. And I was like, I literally started crying. And then Casey saw me crying and he started crying. And we left. And then that's when he shared on Facebook, we're not looking for anything other than your prayers. And you could feel the prayer. Everyone rallied. They supported us. They would ask about Lily, but they didn't really butt in. Everybody was so supportive. And it was important because you want to fight the battle and not be judged. But I was in a fight for my kid's life. It was hard.
Don't make me so crying.
Sorry.
I'm crying.
The support system that I got from my friends and God and, of course, my kids, it was like we knew we were fighting the devil himself. And it took everybody, so we're not embarrassed about it. It happens. And I've met some people that are struggling with it now or have recently struggled with it. And they're, they'll be okay. And I'm like, I hope they are. I really do hope that they are great. But it's important to, and anyone is always welcome to call me. I will share my story. Every story is different. Every child is different. But having people rally around you, I felt was like a huge, important, and the Stingray Allstars that we always say, big gym, bigger family, they really are our family. And there's not a mom or a dad or a kid in that gym that I couldn't rely on if I needed to. And there's probably some families in there that have no idea of what we went through. But I'll have moms call me sometimes that are struggling, and I'll volunteer Lily to talk to their kids. And it's crazy how a lot of them are like, wow, your daughter's on Orange and she went through this. Yeah. Like all of the athletes, they're human and people need to talk about it and they need that support. They don't need to be afraid to say, hey, I need a friend right now. And that's really, we leaned in. We leaned on our Stingray family. We leaned on our families outside. We let her share the majority of things, and until she was ready to talk about it, we really wouldn't. But that was important, being open about it. And we really didn't care what people thought. But I don't think not one person had anything negative or derogatory, or everybody came at us with love and prayers, and that's what got us through it. So you don't need to suffer in silence. You gotta talk about it and get help. So just like she needed help, Casey and I needed help as well.
Wow. So powerful. I'm emotional. I just need to... So when you're battling eating disorders, is there a moment when it's okay, I'm better, or is this a continual recovery, just like somebody, a recovering addict? Is this something that you continually have to check in with yourself and with your family and with professionals, or is it just like okay, I overcame it and I'm good now?
I think it's really different for everyone, but I just stopped speaking with my therapist. Like I just finished, I don't know how to word it.
Completed your
Yeah.
journey with it. Yeah, I understand.
But it's one of those deals too where she has taught her coping skills. She has given her the tools that she needs to continue to be successful. However, her therapist, just like with the things that happened at NCA this past year, Lily, she called me. She said, Mom, my chest is hurting. And I was like, okay, what are you thinking about? What's going on? And she said, I keep replaying things in my head. I was like, okay, reach out. And she did. And it took Lily realizing, okay, and it was something as simple as her therapist gave her some strategies, some skills to use to work through those feelings that she didn't necessarily, and not that she would have, but with eating disorder, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of mental things that go along with it. And you've got to support your brain too. So a lot of the outside, everything around us can affect how we're feeling. So she's done great with realizing, okay, this feeling isn't right. I don't like it. And so she reaches out. She doesn't sit on it and let it just get worse and worse. I'm like, okay, let's go directly to the source. Let's get help now. Even if it's the littlest help, it's helps. And she's not afraid to do that, which is great. But we also found a great support team for her, which we were very lucky in that aspect to have someone close by that is so good.
Yeah. I know that I can always reach out to my therapist. So yes, it's been a while since I've engaged in any eating disorder behaviors. Like it's been years, but like I still have like flashbacks from when I was going through those things that I would process those with my therapist and stuff like that. And talking to somebody always really helped. And a lot of cheerleaders, a lot of girls, a lot of boys too, like people in general struggle with body image. And I still have some body image issues here and there, but I'm able to talk about them, and that has really helped. And me being open about all of this is what I feel like has helped me not go back to where I was. So me talking about it is what's keeping me on track. And I like that I get to help other people. I feel like that also helps me stay on track, is knowing that me going from where I was to now being on a well-known cheer team that a lot of athletes look up to and want to be on makes me feel like I can help others. And I want to inspire other people and help other people get through it.
I love that. And taking it out of the darkness and into the light. I absolutely love that. So let's talk about cheer. That's another podcast, but yeah. But let's talk about that, Lily. So you've finished kind of your treatment. You're in regular therapy. How long was it before you felt like you could physically get back into cheerleading?
Once I got home from treatment, so I got home at the beginning of summer, I don't remember what year, going into my freshman year of high school. So I had already missed tryouts for like school cheer, and I missed tryouts for Stingrays. So I joined the JV cheer team at school. That's the only place that they had a spot. I did that for a little bit. And then,
Yeah, you did that for that season.
yeah. And then I'm trying to think. I joined.
It was just before Jam Fest. It was in January that you joined Sugar, correct?
I believe so. I joined Sugar, which is one of our level 4 teams at Stingrays. And I think getting back into cheer also helped me a lot, because I wanted to be there and I had something to look forward to, and I was getting back to my normal life. Like, I needed a sense of normalcy, and that was really it for me. So I started back with sugar and then kept going from there.
Is this your first year on Orange, or have you been on it for a season?
This
or
is
two
my
already?
second season on
Second.
Orange.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that feeling like when you made Orange? Was it had to have been a special moment?
It was crazy. I did not think I was going to be on Orange, at least not last season, because since I was in treatment so long and I was literally on bed rest, I didn't have the skills that I used to have. So now and last year, I'm not a tumbler on Orange. So I'm in all the stunts and stuff. You asked me to throw tumbling, I just probably could not do it. Right now, I feel like if I really tried to, I could probably get something back. But also, right when I got back into cheer, I ended up breaking my foot. That's why I did not start with sugar sooner. So then I had to get surgery, and then that put me out even longer. I was really shocked to make Orange, and I was really excited. Yeah.
That's so exciting. That is so cool that you had that almost like that full circle overcoming stand on the mountain moment.
Yeah.
Mom, how did you feel?
It was amazing. Of course, we have zero say. I think the coaches are harder on our kids, on Lily and Emily, than most, and they're very quick. I say they. My husband's very quick to make an example of them. So I wasn't expecting anything at all. But after she made it, I was just like, they were so excited, and they were just like, we need a badass base right now. And that's what she is. And so every kid on the team brings something to the team, whether you're a dancer or a tumbler or a flyer or a bass, you need everyone. So it was a huge accomplishment. I was very proud of her. And I mean, it's an honor, but I was like, we had nothing to do with that. And it was just great because she came back, she worked hard, and she was considering not even trying out because she didn't really believe in herself. She's, I'm not going to make a team. So she pushed through that anxiety of, am I good enough? And made it on her own. And so it's pretty awesome. Every time she takes the floor, it's wow. I'm very sad that she's a senior.
An inspiration. That's incredible on so many levels. And not to, of course, the struggles that you have overcome and the battles that you have won, but also that, again, it's great to work toward your full, your double, and all the tumbling, but you can be on a world's team and not have those skills. Like, I think that's something that younger girls need to remember, that maybe maybe their body just won't do that. That doesn't mean that you don't have hope.
Right.
So I love that. Lily, first of all, thank you for sharing your story, both of you. This has been so moving and probably the most meaningful conversation that I've ever had on this podcast. So thank you for being so brave and sharing this. And I know that it's such a personal thing and that you don't have to share everything that you did, if anything. And so thank you so much for telling us all of this. And I want to close with, Lily, what advice would you give to girls and boys, as you mentioned, who are struggling with body image issues?
Something that really helped me was not focusing on what I look like and focusing on what my body can do. So, for example, like my arms, I use my arms and I use my legs to hold up stunts at practice. And if I don't have the nourishment that I need, I'm not going to be at my strongest and I'm not going to be able to perform at my best. So just focusing on what my body can do instead of what I don't like about it. And it also took me a long time to realize, but you have to realize that everybody is different and everybody's body is different. Everybody is beautiful in their own unique ways. And I think the most important thing is asking for help. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, and sometimes you need it. So asking for help, it's not a sign of weakness. And I think that everything that I've been through has made me stronger. So if anything, asking for help is just making you a stronger person.
And Heather, when she talks about asking for help, if a mom is listening and or a coach even, and they have someone come to them asking for help, what does that look like?
Listening. That's one thing I don't feel like I did a very good job of. I immediately was like, when something would be said, I would try to fix it. And I've learned a lot of times I just need to sit back and listen before I react or before I say, because sometimes they need to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard. And if you're not listening, you're not going to really know what they need. And there's signs all over the place that, and I never would have known, but listening and paying attention and always being there and communicating is so important. And so I have learned that all 5 of my kids to listen, and our relationships are all very strong. So these kids, they just want to be heard. And yeah.
I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant advice, because it's easy to want to jump in and say, oh, no, you're beautiful. What are you talking about? You're beautiful. And
Right.
it's no, like I need to tell you about why I'm feeling this way. And
Right.
I think that's so good.
Yeah, you reiterate, like you listen to what they say, and then you go back to, sorry, I'm
The wind blew.
yes, but I lost my train of thought too. What was the question? I'm sorry.
Reiterate was the last word I remember.
Offering help, how you offer help to someone who's asking for
You
help.
tried to reiterate.
Oh, I don't remember where I was going with it.
That's okay. No, that's okay. I'm just thinking, like, how do I even end this? I just want to keep going.
Yeah, it's a long journey, and there's a lot of people out there that struggle with it in silence. And so I really think that people just need to know people are out there to listen. And me as the mom, I'm always here for any moms, even if they don't even think that there's something going on or whatever. I have a village, and my village is strong. And so I want to be there for anybody that I can be. And again, sometimes moms just want to be heard too, and they don't know what to do or how to react, because I was there many years ago, and there's still times that I don't know now. But communication is key. We're all in this together.
You've mentioned a couple of times that if somebody wants to talk, that you're willing to share your story and willing to listen to theirs. Is there a way that somebody can get in touch with you if they want to do that? Are you willing to share
Oh,
a
absolutely.
way that they can reach you?
Yeah, they can text me, call me. Some people don't want to really talk. They would rather. I've had people that have reached out on Facebook through direct message, and I'll share my phone number with them and just open the door for them. I'm not like, oh, give me your number, because I don't want them to feel like, oh Lord, here comes this. But I want them to know that there is somebody out there that's ready and willing to listen, because it's a dark world when you are trying to fight that battle alone. And it was very dark. It really was. And I tried to fight it for a little bit alone by myself, but all it did was made me sink deeper, depressed or whatever. But you have to be strong for your child to be able to lift them up. And I can't remember somebody wrote this little letter, but it's more or less they're hanging over a cliff holding onto a rope. As parents, we're not going to let go of that rope, but we have to work together to figure out how to get those kids out of that dark hole. So it's important to talk about it and not feel like you're alone.
I love that. Thank you both. Thank you. Thank you.
What up, party people? This is Jason Larkins, host of the Let's Talk Cheer podcast, and I've teamed up with Kristen Wheeler of the Cheer Mom podcast and Dan Cotton of the Cheer Biz podcast.
That's right. Hey, everybody, Kristen here. We know that you love cheer, so why not dive into more perspectives? Tune into my podcast, the Cheer Mom podcast, for cheer issues spoken from the parent's perspective. Then head over to Dan's podcast, the Cheer Biz podcast, to learn from a gym owner on how to run a successful cheer business. And of course, don't miss the Let's Talk Cheer podcast featuring Jason Larkins, the one that we all know and love, where they talk about cheer from a coach's perspective.
Which means whether you're a coach, a cheer parent, or a gym owner, we've got you covered. Find all 3 podcasts on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and stay tuned for new episodes each week.